Welcome to Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler.
Good morning and welcome back into Inside the Game, number 195 here on this Friday, November 21st. I'm Jonathan Turner. That's Nathan Wangler. Ryan Glinsky, our producer, as we're live right now on TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Roku TV, where each and every morning we are joined by 2,000 of you who watch our show, and we appreciate that very, very much. Yesterday we had a great conversation about the U.S. men's national team against Uruguay, and during our kind of like our pre-show conversation, we were talking about, obviously we're here in Michigan, so we oftentimes talk about Michigan sports, and we were talking about Michigan State and Michigan and kind of like how that rivalry and really how it seems like we all seem to think that Michigan State's irrelevant. in some level,
in
right?
That regard.
And the only thing that truly matters to MSU would be beating Michigan in football in any given year. If they were to do that, is that their quote unquote Super Bowl?
Yes.
You know, I mean, and so,
Yeah.
you know, if the entire season they lost every game but just won that one, does that go down as a huge thing for that team? I would argue probably on some level internally, not so much, but probably as a base, I would imagine on some level. But I think it brings up a good point because as part of that too, we were talking about the Mexico and U.S. men's national team and talking about that. And is it kind of the same thing? Because of late, Mexico has not been as relevant, right, as they have been prior to the 21st century, as we say. And so it brings up a great question, because does the rest of the world think of the U.S. men's national team in that same way? Are they irrelevant when it comes to soccer? And if you play them, are we like, if we go out and win a game against a good quality opponent internationally, is that the quote unquote, you know, are we the MSU of international soccer? I think it's a great conversation to have. I'm not saying that. I'm just thinking, is it a good, and vice versa? Can we have that debate, and is it a good conversation to have? I think it is, especially as we start talking about what happened this past week and what we're looking forward to in the World Cup.
I think from a relevance perspective, I think we're on the same playing field. And that's something that, you know, I had mentioned to you during our, you know, off-screen conversation coming into this. I'm not saying that for some reason that the U.S. is on a different level than Mexico. Listen, Mexico has a rich history and a rich tradition when it comes to this sport. I mean, they've made a lot of noise in the World Cup. Obviously, they have that curse. We talked about it yesterday when it comes to making it to the round of 16 and no further. And, you know, being a Cubs fan growing up myself, I know a thing or two about curses. It's just one of those things where you're just like, how is it that we haven't been able to break past that? But as of late, you know, really since the turn of the century, the point that I was trying to make is that obviously the U.S. leads the series against the two. They lost in the Gold Cup. But I just reflected on just how much after they won that Gold Cup, they always have to take the opportunity to throw it in our face. And I understand it. It's a rivalry. Alexi Lala has talked about the sheer intensity of the U.S. playing Mexico in that sport. But I compared it to Michigan MSU for one reason, and that is the insecurity of we might not win anything worth noting in terms of a World Cup or anything outside of maybe like CONCACAF, which is like, who cares? But if we beat you, that's everything. Like, that's our entire world. And so when I said that sometimes they live in our shadow, it's because their entire existence, much like I said when it comes to Michigan State football, is simply wrapped around beating the United States. Outside of that, like, what have they really done in the last handful of years? So that was the point that I was trying to bring up. From a relevance perspective, I think they probably view us on the same playing field, but they definitely view the U.S. behind Mexico. I think if you were to ask people around the world, Mexico, the United States, any given day, who do you take? Again, this is all hypotheticals, but if I were to run a test or a study here, I would guess they would probably pick Mexico over the U.S. still. That'd be my take.
I don't disagree with that. But I think that the conversation that I think is worth having is, would we have a seat at the table, right? With U.S. And think about that for a second, right? Think about like, the hierarchy and like the winners, the teams that have won and done something in their Brazil winning multiple World Cups, right? Argentina, right? Are we a nation that would have a seat at the table and be respected in the same sentiment as all these other countries, even though we haven't won?
No.
Even though we haven't won, right? No. But we are on our way up. Are we even at that table? We're not at that table, right? No. And so the question becomes, right? Because we look at this, right? Look at Indiana. We're talking about Indiana this year in football, right? And Indiana is a perfect example.
We're like South Sudan in basketball. That's how I would compare us. South Sudan has a lot of great players in the league. They almost beat the U.S.
But I think if you talk about in regards to
Canada, I think
if we look at this from the standpoint of Indiana right now, Indiana is obviously has been undefeated. Mm-hmm. They're undefeated right now, right? And they are a team that no one really, for the most part, except for maybe one person in this room, takes them seriously, and maybe a bunch of other people across the country. Do they have a fighting chance of winning a national championship? And
no.
Some would sit here and say, like Ryan's saying, no, but their record says otherwise. And so, but they don't. I mean, you start putting them up against Ohio State, Penn State. You start putting them up against Penn State maybe not so much, but Alabama's of the world, right? Clemson. You start talking about these, and they're not in the same ballpark. Right? Is that where we are as U.S. men's national team? Are we like, okay, well, there's Ohio State.
They would beat the brakes off of Clemson, but everybody else, I think I don't know, they might have some trouble with. But no, yeah, you're right. I do it. Are we there yet? And I think actually, Ryan, to your point, I think Canada is probably the better example if we're going to look at basketball. I think because they have Shea. They have a lot of different individual players that are good. Dylan
we
Brooks,
don't have Shea. I'll tell you that. Pulisic is not Shea.
Well,
no. But Shea's an MVP of the
Pulisic's
league.
Got to get better. Pulisic's got to get better at flopping, though, man. You know what I mean? Like that's his
Shea,
thing.
Shea and Pulisic are not the same.
That is unfortunately that is a learned trait everywhere but here. So
yeah,
it's like
you gotta learn, man. But
I think this is the conversation I think that makes sense to have right now, because I think it also plays into what we saw on Tuesday, and this is why I was as strong as I was yesterday about this, is that I think today that a lot more teams around the world are taking notice of what we're doing and are probably like, oh crap, or there's this, hey, maybe there's something coming there. I think we are now at that point where, as a soccer nation, there are teams around the world that are going, they could be onto something here. Maybe there's something happening here. Maybe they have some of the pieces and stuff like that. mean, coaches and players, I still feel like maybe kind of on a level are kind of like, we're here and U.S. is here. And so there's this, you're beneath me. You're not as high quality as me. There's this, maybe there's some of that. And I think that does play into what we see on the soccer field. Right. And I think, again, I think based on what you were talking about.
Get it. But when credit to Europe for influencing our game at the same exact time, like whether it be on the college level, whether it be on the coaching side, I think about Thiago Silva, who's at, Bethel University. He's Brazilian, but he's been coaching in that area for a long time. He's won a lot of national championships. He's developed a lot of players, many of whom come from the area or from the United States, but have learned under the tutelage of someone that came from a soccer culture that's rich in that tradition. So I think Europe in a lot of ways has positively influenced the American game at the same time, because I think they see the opportunity to not only live in the United States, but it's also the opportunities in soccer are wide open. And I think that's something that you and I have tried to put out there, like even in the media side. I mean, it's something that you and I have tried to put out there, like even in the media side. I mean, we have an opportunity to get up and do this every day. And I know you've been in the sport your whole life, and Ryan obviously played in high school, but me jumping on board, there's a lot that's out there. It's just waiting to be explored. And so I think Europe has affected our culture in that way. And then in the way of basketball, I mean, they kind of took our blueprint and they ran with it over in Europe. And, they saw what we were doing, and a lot of their players have become more individually creative in the way they score and the way they move and the way they shoot. And I think they took that from the American game. So it's kind of back and forth, but you're right. In terms of individual players, and I said this, a few episodes ago, we have more depth now than we've ever had before on this national team. We have more players playing in more European leagues and actually making a difference than ever before. And I think a lot of that is thanks to the way Europe has influenced our game at the same time.
Yeah, and if I look at it from the youth in the youth space, right? And Ryan and I, we both played club soccer growing up, and back when I was growing up, there were only a handful of teams, and now here in Michigan, there's over 200, right? And I even though we're comparing international to the youth game, they're very similar in which
it shows growth, though.
Huh?
It still shows growth.
Well, what I was going to say though is that like Ryan, you played for who growing up? What club team?
The Michigan Wolves.
Michigan Wolves.
East,
I played for at the beginning. I played for something called North Metro, and then I ended up playing for Vardar. Now, Vardar, back when I was growing up, that was the gold standard of boys soccer, right? You national championships, best coaching, most expensive. Like if you played for Vardar, you were like, that you were on a really good team and you were a good player, right? And if you played for like another, like a local team, like the time there's like Troy Cosmos or Troy whatever, right? Maybe you had a player on that team that was good, but you weren't looked upon as a superior player, right? And now you go across the state of Michigan, there's like 5 or 6 clubs that you could argue would be like the top clubs. And then there's a whole bunch of other clubs that everyone's trying to fight maybe to get to that one club, right? And so I think it's kind of like the same idea internationally, right? You've got these 5 or 6, 10 nations that are just unbelievably good, consistently great countries. And everybody's trying to get to there, right? U.S. men's national team kind of floated around like the top 20 for like the last 3 or 4 years in the world rankings. And to be fair, did they earn it? Honestly, it's probably, who knows, right? But it's like top 20, right? They've been in the 30s, but they've been kind of in that top 20. And to be fair, in the last 3 years, there's been a lot of disparity in this U.S. men's national team, right? We haven't played the best soccer. We've had some question marks in the last couple of years, especially when it comes to the best players in our country on this field playing in these games. And we've seen recently players who are, we talk about this fight for another day, this fight to make the roster. They've made themselves relevant, and they've shown this tenacity that we haven't seen. And now we're talking about, well, can the U.S. men's national team, A team, do the exact same thing? Can they take this fight that we're seeing from the players who are, quote unquote, not the regular players and turn that into something come time for the World Cup? And I was listening to a comment yesterday from, it was, who am I thinking? Bradley.
Michael Bradley?
Yeah, Michael Bradley was talking about how he was seeing Pulisic and he was seeing some of these guys training. And he had a conversation with them. He was talking about how, like in the next, no one's going to care come June what the storylines were, leading up to the World Cup. Yeah. It's all that's going to matter is the 90 minutes times 3. And so no one cares if you took a time off to take care of your health, or you missed a training, or you didn't go to this one window. No one's going to care come June when you guys take the pitch. And for those 90 minutes times 3, you guys get a favorable outcome, right? Things work in your favor. So just keep that in mind. But if you don't have favorable outcomes, if you don't do well in those 90 minutes times 3, what then happens, right? And I think that there's this underdog mentality that we have, but it's interesting to see this U.S. men's national team in person now twice, Nate, where we see them this tenacity, this vigor that I don't think we've seen. And I said yesterday that the concern that I have, and I think a lot of people have, is what is this A team going to do? Mm-hmm. And we even talked about this probably 6 months ago. Like, I don't give a shit who's on the field as long as we get like I want 11 Diego Lunas. Right. I mean, if they all have
We're not going to win many headers, I'll tell you that.
No, but I mean, again, the scrappiness and the scrappiness and
Diego Luna
and all of
strays
that
this morning.
I know these one-liners he's just kind of zinging in here. It's been great. But it's like, but if we have like 11 Diego Lunas out there that are going to run through walls in order to go get the ball and to give ourselves a chance, like I would rather have that than pretty soccer that ends in 80% possession and a 3-0 loss, which we have seen. We saw it against Canada. We saw it against Mexico. You outpossess teams, but you don't win the soccer game. And who the hell cares what the stat line was if you come away with a dumb loss? Yeah. And so I think that is like, and the reason I also thought about this whole relevancy thing as well, Nate, is that because I think that there is this undertone around the world that we are beneath everybody else. I'm not saying that we feel that way. I'm saying that I believe that other nations, and we saw it what happened this week with Belisa, right? He comes out and he says that our players are lazy and less than by playing in the MLS. And we've already said that we think the MLS is not where it needs to be compared to the other nations. But we have a coach who's taking on our team this week saying that we are less than, right? We are less than. And so what does that send the message to the players who are playing on the field? Well,
let's put BTA.
It's like, so I think that there is this thing where we are fighting this battle of relevancy, of fighting this battle that we are less than. We are fighting this battle that we're not in the quote unquote VIP room. We are we're in coach right now on that plane while everybody else is in first class. And we're trying to figure out why we're not there. And I think that in itself is probably part of the reason we face.
And that's why I was saying yesterday, like, I don't think they need a reason to go out and play hard. I think they have all the reasons built in for them. And that's exactly what you just said right there. And the fact that we can go back and make an edit of what this window has been between the scuffle with Panama and the goals and the way that we just kind of controlled play from beginning to end. And really we kicked Uruguay's, what. I mean, even on an off day, like, it's funny. This year, we talked about like the Whitecaps team that I covered. The baseball team was so good. They'd nearly won 100 games. I remember after we clinched the first half, you're probably wondering where this is going. Stick with me here. Where they partied, whatever, had fun. We had a hangover game the next day. You know what I mean? So they go out, and I mean, everyone's got their shades on. Everyone's running at 50%. We still go out and we win that game 2-1, right? Because we were the more talented team. They didn't want to be there. The sun was out. It was hot. Everything like that. And part of me thinks that even if Uruguay, after a bender, they could have been out partying all night, shown up, and still beaten that B squad. But yeah, we beat them 5-1. So, like, I think these kids have something to play for. I think they are pissed off. I think they realize exactly where they are in terms of the pantheon of soccer and where we are in the world and exactly what's said about them, not just by Europeans, but by Americans too. We understand what it is. And I love that documentary, and I'll say this before we go to our next segment. Part of that Pulisic documentary is they ask literally a bunch of players, they go, is there a bias against American players on the world scale? Everybody who's not from America, who's a part of the soccer sphere, goes, no, there's no bias. If you can play, you can play. Every American player goes, yes, 100% there is a bias against American players overseas, anywhere you go. That's the reality. That's what we're up against. And that's why 2026 in this World Cup is going to make all of the difference in what American soccer looks like moving forward.
Yeah, this one, by the way, we are commercial free this morning, and so we will not be stepping aside, perfect. Which is great.
All right, here we go.
I know, right? It's like, so, but I think that, again, that point specifically, and this is why I do believe that when it comes to the friendly environment, the friendlies, and again, that's why I think people oftentimes don't know what a friendly means, and that's why I say soccer is so vastly different than that of other sports, right? These are scrimmages. In NCAA basketball,
glorified scrimmages.
In NCAA basketball, they're exhibition games. They don't. I mean, exhibition. I mean, do they count towards a record? What record are we counting? Like, what does it mean? I mean, aside from it meaning to the individual player and maybe the team, it doesn't mean a whole lot in the whole scheme of things, right? Yeah. But for us, a nation that hasn't won a World Cup, every game we play should matter, right? We haven't won it. We haven't won the big one, right? And so everything that we do as a nation should matter. But if we flip that to the other team, the one that's won it, the one that is used to winning, the one that when they walk in, everybody knows who they are, and they it's just when you see it, that's who they are. Mm-hmm. It's completely different. It's like no different than when Russia lost to the U.S. in the Olympics, right? They're kind of all sitting there going like, what are they doing over there? They're all excited. They're celebrating. They're confused as to why there's so much excitement that they won. Because they'd won so many times that they were like, what is going on right now? Where it became robotic, right? And so I think there's something to be said about that.
Oh yeah,
I don't. To be fair, I don't know if we talk enough about it, and that's why it's even like when Coach Pochettino was talking about this in regards to the press about like, hey, I'm not the janitor, I'm the head coach, and these players, what regular guys? What are you talking about? Well, yeah, we don't have regular guys because everybody's constantly changing. We aren't bringing the same people in all the time. I actually think it was Berhalter. He never once had the same starting 11, like ever. I think he always had a change.
Smartest guy in the room.
I don't think he ever had the same starting 11 on the field. And like always different. And so I think there's something to be said about him and him defending his players to the point that, these aren't my regular guys, but who are the regular guys? Like, what does that even mean? I mean, and so, I think about like this team and I think about what they're battling for.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there's fight in them right now that other nations aren't going to have because they don't believe they need to fight.
Yeah, I like that. And you're right. To your point, again, underestimating an opponent, not bringing your A game, all those things are 100% at play. But it is nice to see that every single game does matter to this squad, and it is. I mean, it's all good signs in my opinion. But I know we got a lot of topics to get to, so Ryan, if you want to roll into those. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff to catch up on. But the roster talk coming up is going to be fun. We got a lot of time to talk about roster talk and how everything's going to look for that team.
Yeah. Oh, I'd like to give my point on this real quick. So, as someone who I remember watching the whole Rising docu-series on YouTube about all the USA players that included McKennie, Adams, Pulisic, Zach Steffen of all people, who's no longer in the roster. I almost said with us, but no longer on the roster. He got bypassed by like 3 goalkeepers. That was a little bit of a shock to me. And then I think Christian Roldan was in there. I'll have to go back to see all the players. Tim Way, I know, was in there.
I think Carter Vickers is in there too.
But who's watched the Premier League for basically my whole life at this point that I can remember, at least from like 2012 on. That's all I watched in terms of soccer wise, and I've watched every USA game that I've been able to watch. So it's not like I don't, but I'm not. It's a person that really subscribes to the MLS. Like I'll watch the USL with DCFC. I'll tell you that, and then obviously working here doing all the different games. Like I didn't realize the amount of soccer leagues that was truly going on in this country, and it's phenomenal. But someone who is like wanted to see a USA player make it in the Premier League. That's kind of what I've always wanted to see. Like when I first started watching Tim Howard with Everton, obviously that was a little different. And then Landon Donovan before which is funny now to think of it. He came over to Everton on a loan so he could stay fit for the 2014 World Cup. Clearly that worked out for him. And then obviously Clint Dempsey with Tottenham at the beginning. So I got to see some flashes, some glimpses every now and again. But I never got to see like a sustained player, like a player consistently make it. And that's what I've always wanted to see, whether it's in the Premier League but in Europe. And I was devastated when Pulisic went to Chelsea, by the way, because 1, I thought it was a horrible move. 2, Chelsea's a poorly ran club. 3, that's a London rival. Didn't want Pulisic to succeed at Chelsea because of the whole rivalry a little bit. But seeing it now and the whole change of everything, and now I see like English content creators, if you want to call it that, videos that I watched on YouTube, and then all of a sudden by like 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, they're making videos on what is going on with the U.S. in terms of soccer. Why are all these Americans making over here? And I'm like, things are starting to change a little bit. And I'm not saying we're going to win the World Cup this year. I'm not saying we're going to win the World Cup in 2030. But I would say maybe 2034, 2038, we could have a fighting chance, I would say, because I think the foundation is – and we talked about basketball earlier in terms of that. When I was first started watching, it was like the only countries at the time were Spain and Argentina. Nick Batum with France and Tony Parker. That was about it. Now I'm watching
Australia, yeah.
LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, all those dudes struggle with Serbia and Nikola Jokic and France. Kind of scares me a little bit in terms of basketball because we need to dominate the basketball sphere. But in the end, they win, and I still only think the country that'll compete with us in a long term in basketball is France, just because of the way that they're built and how their country is ran in terms of athletes. But I think it's a really good thing to see with Americans. And I will say I think the tide is starting to turn on the way that we view, or other countries view, American soccer players. But we still have to earn it. We still have to get our foot in the door. We still have to earn our seat at the table, because we could say all these nice things about how things have changing, but we have not been to a semifinal in the World Cup, I think, since 1940 or 1936, whatever it was. So we have not been to that stage. We've only been to one quarterfinal back in 2002 since then. So we still have to earn our right at the table, find our seat at the table. And I think they're capable of getting to a quarterfinal and maybe 2030 capable of getting to a semifinal, but we still have got to earn that right. And the moment we earn our right in soccer, the whole world's going to blow up, because they don't know what to do if Americans become good at soccer. I'm just saying.
No, yeah, I mean it's a great point, and I actually think this is something to be said too. And because we talk about roster, and we were just talking about Zach Steffen, right? And we have to start. I think this is from a realistic standpoint. These guys are all professionals, right? Again, we don't have anybody on our team, on the men's national team as of right now, outside of obviously anyone under the U20s, U19s, whatever, that are considered maybe amateurs. Mm-hmm. And so if you're Zach Steffen and you're a goalkeeper, and you know that you got to go into a camp and you have to accept this opportunity, right? If you don't think you're going to be on this roster, does it hurt your quote unquote, like, your ability to go out and negotiate contracts, right? Go out and does it hurt your ability, right? If you take the third string role, right? If you aren't that second or that first, guy, or you're going into your last thing. I mean, these are all things that agents and all these people are involved in. And I would argue have impact. If you don't think you have a hope in hell of making the team, you're not going to go into that camp. you're going to steer clear of it. Who wants to be the third string goalkeeper on a friendly where everyone's backups? Yeah. Right. And so I think there's something to be said about that. And it would not surprise me if guys like Zach Steffen, who were once upon a time on this roster, are not on the roster more because they want to continue to get more money for their contracts, or they're trying to keep their stake where it's at. I think that's a lot to be said about that. But speaking of contracts, let's dive into this conversation about none other than our Captain America in Christian Pulisic.
Yeah, I will. On Monday, I will tell you who those 11 rising players were and where they've been, because there's a couple funny ones in terms of that. Some of them have obviously panned out, but some of them not so much. But Christian Pulisic currently, I wouldn't say holding out, but not signing a contract extension with AC Milan until the club is guaranteed a UEFA Champions League spot next year. They are not currently in the Champions League this year. The year prior, they made it all the way to the semifinals, I believe. I believe they made it all the way to the semifinals the year before that. But he wants to make sure that there's an assurance before he signs his new deal. His deal currently runs until the summer of 2027 with an option for a club option to extend a year, so into 2028. Pulisic currently has 6 goals, 2 assists this season, and AC Milan sits in third place. They have no Champions League this year, and also worth mentioning, Pulisic has played this month, after, of course, with his injury. So his last game was November 8th, I believe. So he's fit.
So I guess I'm curious, and maybe you can help kind of clear up my understanding of this. How do they get admitted into the Champions League? That's not a promotion, right?
Have you ever seen Ted Lasso? It's very confusing.
Is it top 4?
It's
top 4.
So in a league like this, it's probably top 4. You could probably get in all the differences of, you win this trophy, you also can get into the Champions League. But for simplicity's sake, we'll just say top 4 teams make it into the Champions League. So they got to finish top 4. So it is technically a promotion, if you think about it.
All right. So it's essentially he wants to play out the stretch, and if they make it into the Champions League, then he wants to sign a new contract. Is kind of what I'm understanding from reading all this. By the way, I haven't seen Ted Lasso. I'm ashamed of that. I know everybody's seen
horrible.
it. I got to get on it. I know it's horrible. I get it. I just don't. I know. Dan's gotten on me about that one too. He's like, "What are you doing?" He always like rattles off like these one-liners, and they just like soar right over my head. He's like, "You haven't seen it yet, have you?" I'm like, "No."
By the way, AC
sorry."
Milan 2 points off of the top, so they could
Okay.
ultimately win the league if all things being considered.
There are two ways to get into Champions League. One is
Through Serie A.
domestic league position, the most common method, top European leagues. I'm going to get 4 places in the new 36-team league phase. Winning a European competition, that's another way to get in. So,
But AC Milan doesn't have any European competitions this year.
nope. So the only way they get in is if they win in their top 4. That's the only way they get in.
But
Really
to
top
simplify it for you, Nate, just finish top 4 and you're in.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So-
I mean, it makes sense. So here's what's going to happen, right? So he's like, I want to see how we finish. Understandably so. He wants to get into the Champions League again, and then he'll sign a new contract. I get it. He's dictating terms. I think it's cool to see that obviously he has that pull and that power, but if it doesn't work out, he's coming back to the MLS. Coming to the MLS.
To be fair, though,
he's
it's
gonna
kind of
take over.
I mean, you're kind
He's
of
gonna
putting
be the
your.
face of the
It's one of
league.
those things where it could be like a lose-lose. Yeah, by making that statement, you know what I mean. It could be a win-win-win maybe too. But I look at it and say, okay, well, you make this statement, right? You're like, well, because again, it's not like this is like, well, okay, club, go negotiate our Champions League deal. You have to perform, and so if Pulisic absolutely goes out there and crushes it, gets 6 more goals and 5 more assists or whatever, finished with 12 goals this season, they make it in, great, right? But if they shit the bed and he's playing like ass,
It's risky.
it's like,
It's very
you
risky.
put yourself in
Yeah.
this spot, it's like, so
Very
I don't know. I feel like that's probably not something you should put out to the world. Maybe that's something you should just, like, hey, yeah, let's just see how let's see how this year finishes up and maybe not put like, got to get to the Champions League as if somehow like that is entirely on him. Or like on this team. It's just I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the statement. It kind of puts him in a bad spot. I don't know. What are your thoughts,
and
Ryan?
Oh, yeah. I guess I was going first. I mean, you got to go prove it now at this point. I mean, help the team get Champions League football next season. I mean, it could be a lose-lose. It could also be a win-win. So if I'm Christian Pulisic, you've now got to go back it up at this point. It could very well blow up in his face. He could suck the rest of the way.
Yeah.
AC Milan could suck the rest of the way. At the same time, though, they got to make sure that their crowd doesn't get get sour towards them, because that is a horrible crowd to turn sour. I forgot the
Italians
name of them,
are brutal, man. Italians are brutal.
Pulisic, you gotta go out there and prove it, man. Like that's the only way that this goes well for you. And at the same time, what if AC Milan goes in, which we've seen this time and time again in terms of players re-signing contracts. They want to make sure that assurance. Also, transfer moves happen a ton in our surrounded, revolve so much around making Champions League compared to Europa League. That's another thing that you also have to mention out there. And it's not just Pulisic. We're not signaling out Pulisic just because he's American and he made this statement. This is new to us, all right? But what if AC Milan goes out, wins Serie A, but they do it in spite of Christian Pulisic? What if Pulisic's not a factor at this point? Does AC Milan just turn around and say, well, we don't want you here because you said this, you didn't want to re-sign, but we did this without you? Or he could absolutely just turn it up, carry AC Milan to a Champions League spot, which I don't think would happen, but it could very well blow up in his face. But all I got to say is, Pulisic, go out and prove it.
Something tells me that he's not convinced about the future of the club, though. Because this is not the first time that they've offered him an extension. I mean, they did at the end of the 24-25 season, turned it down because he was disappointed with the results. He wanted the appointment of a new coach, which was something that obviously they ended up getting. And so now he, once again, is not agreeing to terms with an extension and wants to see how they finish the season. So this is a couple of different times that AC Milan has come to Christian Pulisic and offered him an opportunity to extend his time there, and he just simply hasn't done it. So something tells me that he's not convinced about what the future of this club is, and maybe he's comfortable making a move elsewhere. I don't know where elsewhere would be for Christian Pulisic, but that tells me a little
team is in
something.
the Champions League.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, I guess.
I think that's the next move.
I guess
probably.
he wants to be
Yeah,
one of the
you're
35 teams that are not the one. He wants to be one of those
Yeah.
teams. And so, I think everyone does things for negotiation purposes. We know I'm going to put some feelers out there, and I think it's great that he wants to do that. But at the same time, you're kind of putting this bullseye on yourself and you're like making this statement where unless you show up and do your shit and have a great job, you're putting this target on your back that says, and again, that's why I say it's a lose-lose, because if like what Ryan was talking about, if he goes out there and doesn't perform and they still win, does his value go down? I would say it does, especially in a contract year. If he goes out there and he rocks it and they do this, but he could go out there and rock it and they still don't make it. I mean, again, he could have 30 goals and their team loses every game by a goal. It doesn't really matter. I mean, this is one of those things where like make it in the, it just put, like, again, that's like, well, if we don't make the Super Bowl this year, I'm not signing my contract next year. Like, whoa, wait a second. Like, that's a pretty strong statement. I mean, like,
yeah. But there are players that hold out though. I mean,
I think you hold out and keep your mouth shut, right? I mean, don't you? No. I mean,
this I don't. So
I don't think Pulisic said anything.
Them qualifying for the Champions League is a little bit different than winning a championship here in America, because you just have to be
playoffs. Make the playoffs.
Yes.
Fine.
All right, let's go.
We don't make the playoffs
then.
this year. I'm not going to sign my contract with you guys.
But he also is under contract next year, so it's not like he's
through 27.
Yeah, no, but there's nothing stopping AC Milan from using a transfer or loaning him out. That happens all the time. You loan him out. Say, see ya. Go play on the third division. Whoever over here, we're gonna loan you out.
That wouldn't happen in terms of the loan. He wouldn't accept the loan that way. He wouldn't go to a third division. He would probably go to like a mid top tier 1 team, and also at the same time, I don't think.
But did this actually come out of his mouth? Is this actually from him that said this, or is this a belief?
This is what all the reports have said.
So this is basically a quote from Pulisic that he's not going to. He is waiting to see what happens this season with this team, and if they don't make it to the Champions League in 2026, he's not, or 2026-27 season, he's not going to sign a contract extension.
That's what they have been. Pulisic will wait. Yeah, that's what handful of reports have said. Now, if this report that came out 50 minutes ago said he might go to Manchester United, then Pulisic, I don't want you on my men's national team anymore, because you were going to become horrible if you go there. Just saying.
Fair enough. For the sake of time, I know we've got more things to get into. Unless anyone else has another thought about this, again, just put your money where your mouth is my belief.
There's no direct quote, but that's what the report is.
Yeah,
so
I think it's all. Right, and he is on contract through 2027, right? So the urgency of this matter is Milan just wants to make sure that they extend him out, which I understand it. They're just trying to do good business, because I mean, obviously he's been the one that's kind of holding down that team on the offensive side. He's made a huge impact early in the season already, and we've seen that, obviously, despite the injuries that have kind of sidelined him now. And that's another main concern that I think about is the injuries with Christian Pulisic. I mean, does that become a theme? Because he is getting older. Now, what is older? Obviously, he's still very young, but he has a lot of miles on him. He has a lot of minutes. He's played a lot of games, and if you want to try and hold out on this, and now you're getting hurt consistently, that can also work against you. So that raises in a lot of questions, because we've seen him hurt now a couple of times on the national scale. He wasn't ready to go during the summer, and he comes back for these windows, and obviously against Australia he gets hurt. Now he's out for an expanded period of time. I mean, the club is only going to be so patient before they finally decide, hey, you know what, it's probably best to cut bait. But I think that the simple expectation of, I want to see what this year brings us, and then we can start talking about a contract extension, I think is perfectly legitimate. I especially when you talk about being through 2027. He wants to see if they can get promoted, because I think it's realistic, especially given where their current state is right now. If they were like falling off the edge of the earth and he wasn't producing, and that would be a completely different story. But I think expecting the team to actually make some waves, make the playoffs, show that they're worthy of, keeping you around and that the future is still bright, I think is realistic on the side of Pulisic. I think I'd do the same thing if I was in that spot.
you would hold out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think he has the bargaining power to do so.
I don't know. I don't think he does. I mean, again, this is a U.S. men's national U.S. born player who has by and large our most talented player ever. I over there. I think over here you have all the bargaining power in the world.
But I guess the question is, that would anybody in the Champions League want him though? Like, is there anybody in that league that would look at him and be like, "Yeah, we could use a Christian Pulisic"?
Yeah,
Like,
but it
that's
might
the
not be a
thing.
team he'd want to go to
Yeah,
at the same time.
I
That's
think
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But something tells me that maybe he knows something we don't know. I mean, that's why agents are there. Like they have feelers and everything, and maybe he understands that
this
maybe
could be
his options
this could be
are.
his team doing it too. It could be his team negotiating
could
this,
be.
and this is what they're
Yeah.
saying, which
And
is
from
also
everything
very
I've been
possible.
reading, they've kind of been slow to the punch in terms of
Maybe his
actively
agent is
trying to
Scott
get this
Boras,
to
for
go
all
through.
we know.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe
He's going to play for the Pistons,
that's right.
actually. Yep.
Oh boy. Let's move on here. What else we got here?
So this actually popped up from Mac Jack yesterday, who's in our chat. I've not seen him today, but this popped up solely because of him. And he said, what is the over-under MLS players make the World Cup roster? And I set the line at 9.5. And you guys have got to simply say over or under on it. Could be we could debate this as we got question of the day in a couple of minutes. But over under, I set the line at 9.5. So over under 9.5 MLS players make the roster.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we went through this. Is it possible? I think it's more like 9.
Mind you, 26 roster spots.
9.5. So 9 would be the under. So
Yeah, I think we looked at this. It was between 9 and 11 is really where it could be. The question, to be fair, the question
gonna go under.
becomes whether players like if Reyna,
They wouldn't transfer.
Aronson,
They would not transfer by then because you got to think the world when they would transfer, it would not be by.
what I'm saying is that Reyna would replace an MLS player. Right?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
So
gotcha,
I'm
gotcha.
saying
I thought you
okay.
were
So
saying transfer. My
so
bad.
in scenarios like Aronson, for example, right? Reyna, players who currently play across Balogun, right? These are all players that play across the pond. These are players that would ultimately be competing against an MLS player, right? And so I think that's, where also is it bad that we would have 10 players out of 26
Just depends.
being
Depends how you view it.
MLS? Well, I mean, I think that to be fair, our goalkeeper getting peppered by shots is great, and more through the MLS. I think it'd be under 9. I'm gonna go under 9.5.
Under?
I'm gonna go
Okay.
under.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also go under 9.5 since I was thinking about this and I was kind of jotting down who I think at least has a fighting chance.
We can
Freeze.
go through some of this if you want.
Freeze,
Yeah.
Arfston, Luna, Robinson, Berhalter, Roldan, Ream, Tessman. So
Tessman's
that's
overseas.
That's 9.
Tessman's
Oh,
overseas.
Tessman is so 8. Sorry. Whoops.
So
There's at least 3 goalkeepers that
yeah,
would
so
be.
all three
Okay, so
goalkeepers.
unless we're counting, okay, all right, goalkeepers. Okay, so that maybe that takes me over 9 then.
So all right, let's go. So let's do the exercise here. Let's do the exercise
Yeah.
here. So Freese, Schulte, and Turner are all making it, correct? Or if Schulte
At least Freeze and Turner. I can't speak to
So-
Schulte yet, but definitely
But
Freeze
I will
and
say
Turner.
the third goalkeeper is going to be an MLS goalkeeper, whether we like if it's Schulte or not. I would say
Yeah, I
that.
don't think there's another goalkeeper who's playing overseas right now, so I guess that would be the
Yeah, no, everyone would be
So there
MLS. So 3 spots.
3 spots MLS,
All right. So
unless they want a 44-year-old goalkeeper and myself, which I don't play in the MLS. So
from the National Soccer Network, Jonathan Turner.
wow, that's a flop.
I feel like Scott Sterling,
So,
dude. He just takes
all right.
it
I'm
off
gonna
the
dive. I'm
forehead.
gonna dive. It wasn't a flop.
So we're in agreement that Tim Ream would make this roster. So that puts us at 4. Arston. Yes or no?
I'd
I
say
think
yes.
so. I think Arston makes his roster.
So that's 5. Alex Freeman. Yes or no?
Question mark.
No.
Question mark. Okay. Miles Robinson.
Yes.
Yes.
So that already puts us at 6. I don't see Walker Zimmerman or Austin Trusty making this roster. So Noah Kai Banks.
No.
No? Okay. So we're still
No.
at 6. Moving up to the midfielders. Sebastian Berhalter.
Yes.
Question mark. for me. I know he says yes, but I say question mark.
So 7.
Because again, I think Reyna. I mean, if we've been talking about Reyna for a bit now, a lot of our energy the last week. I mean, Berhalter, if Reyna, I think that's the person that takes his spot. Are we offline again?
No, just a TikTok in terms of inactivity. Now we're back, so we're good.
Okay.
All right. So where were we?
Berhalter.
Berhalter. So
Nate says yes. I say question.
So Nate's at 7 at this point. Christian Roldan.
Yes.
Question mark, but I think Mauricio Pochettino will say yes.
Okay, so 8 for Nate, 7 for John. Luna.
I think it's a question mark, but at this point, it's a question mark leading towards a yes. So I'm going to put a check mark. So yes.
Yeah, I'll say yes, sure.
So Nate's at 9. You are at 8, John. I think that could be it. I think.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's under 8. I think it's under 9. I don't
Under 9?
I don't see. I don't
9.5,
see.
yeah.
Again, there are these players that we have not seen on a consistent basis that are overseas players that I think would be shoo-ins over some of the. Because again, if I were to put them in order of ranking, like, okay, who's the best MLS player right now, and then work my way down, Tim Ream's a defender, and so Tim Ream's got his experience. I think Tim Ream just gets it because of that, and so eliminate that for a second. Robinson, I think Robinson has shown us a lot over the years, so I think Robinson has earned the spot to be there. Arston is an up-and-comer, right? The shoe-in potentially, I think, is Luna in there, just because he's had the most appearances of any U.S. men's national team player at all this year, 16. Maybe it's 17 now. And so I think that alone is a telltale sign that he makes his team, even though I think it's a question mark. Because if Berhalter makes this team and Reyna makes this team, that means Luna's not making this team. Right? Because Reyna's going to be a disruptor in all this. Because what we've been seeing is we see Berhalter, Luna, we've seen these players who've been kind of staples the last 6 months, and now Reyna pops in. Who's going? Who's not going to make the team? And so I think it comes down to like a Berhalter, or it comes down to a Luna. And I put my money on Berhalter not making it. So if Reyna makes this roster. So that's where my thoughts are. I think it's under 9. So
Fair.
It's a great question, though, Mech Jack, even though you're not here to
he's not even here to.
What an ass. What a straight up ass.
Oh,
probably watching Minnesota United right now or something, some reruns or some shit.
No, they don't play till Saturday.
I said I was watching some reruns.
Oh, reruns.
He's probably reliving that penalty shootout like a few weeks ago.
When I forgot him. Would Timothy Tillman make this roster?
No.
Okay.
No.
I like Timmy. I like Timmy. Nothing wrong with Timmy, but I don't think he's going to be there.
To be fair, for being completely honest, Pochettino could take Timothy Tillman because he forgets with Tillman that he's taking.
Oh
so
my God,
there's a
that's
possibility. I'm just saying.
That's the main concern. That's the main concern. He's
Should we
just
call
gonna-
him
a
Tiny
typo.
Tim though, for sake of Christmas time? Tiny Tim.
I don't think he's tiny though.
No, I just because we're calling him Timothy. I want like Tiny Tim Tillman. I just want.
What's his
Mauricio
height?
Pochettino is definitely using a laptop to type in the players that he wants to like call up, to like officially like cement
He probably
it.
asked
And
Siri.
He
He's
has
6
to go-
foot.
he has to go-
He's 6
He has
foot,
to go
so
by
I
last
doubt it.
name. So he
I
types
don't
in
think we could call him
T-I-L-L,
tiny.
T-I-L-L, and then 2 names pop up, and he just accidentally clicks the wrong one, and then that just.
But I'm just saying, there's a pathway for Timothy Tillman to make this roster simply on the fact that he calls up the wrong Tillman. I'm just saying, there's a pathway.
So factually untrue.
And then he becomes the
So
hero,
factually untrue.
the unsuspecting
so not
hero.
True. But if that's the case, he definitely is the janitor then, by the way, okay? If he made that mistake, he is not the head coach of this team.
He is.
He's like, I called the wrong guy. All right, janitor Pochettino.
He's in the middle of cleaning toilets.
If honestly, it would be
Sir, what
hilarious
Tillman
for the
do you
next
want?
game if Pochettino wore like a janitor like jumpsuit with his name on
That
it, like
would
in
be
front.
great.
That would be the greatest with a
Rolls
logo.
a
US
mop out there.
Totally do it, man. That'd be great. All right, question of the day.
Let's get into question today. We're gonna do a little bit early. We're gonna get out here a little bit early. It's Friday, so Let's do it. But before we do get to question of the day, Salt Athletic is an official sponsor of us here at the National Soccer Network. Use promo code NSN15 to save 15% off, or scan the QR code on your screen, or just type in visit saltathletic.com today. But question of the day, which I came up with 2 minutes ago. Do you like the amount of World Cup teams that the U.S. has scheduled in terms of their friendlies? Because they just scheduled Germany for March in Chicago, and in that window they also have Portugal, which could very well be 2 L's heading into the World Cup in that March window.
I love it. I love it. It's going to give them FaceTime with the best countries in the world going into the World Cup. That's the most important thing. It's fun to stack W's, but it's even better to give your guys FaceTime with those dudes before we finally have to play them in a game that probably means everything, especially if we're able to get out of the group and all of a sudden we come face-to-face with one of the major countries. I love it. I also think it's going to be a spectacle for American fans because it's not often you get to see the U.S. men's national team take off against a team like Germany or a team like Portugal. So I think it's a great opportunity for everyone all around, and it's a chance to go up against the big dogs and kind of see, one last go-round before it's time to really hit the ground running. I love it.
I think especially the fact that you're not going to pay $50,000 to watch it.
Yeah,
right. I
think,
that too. You can get in. Yep. You can get in the stadium for a lot less to be a part.
Yeah, but it's gonna be Soldier Field, so is it really worth it?
The spaceship.
I'm just saying that stadium sucks.
I think that there's a couple things. One is there's 2 ways to look at this. If we are going to be playing with our best players, absolutely love this. Right. If we're using it as still trying to figure out who our final roster is going to be, then no, because as much as I want to see us play Germany, I don't want to see us and our B team players who are like 12 through 19 on our roster going up against the world's best and not showing us anything. You know what I mean? So I think if we're going to be seeing our best players, if we're going to see in March in that window, as we go on and take Portugal and take on Germany, if we're going to be seeing Pulisic and we're going to see Anthony Robinson, we're going to see Adams, we're going to see our back line, we're going to see our team, the team that we're going to battle for 90 minutes times 3 come June, then absolutely this makes sense, and I'm totally supporting of it. But if it's just another way for us to watch and eliminate Luna and watch, as we see Berhalter ring one off a side netting is that good for us? I don't think it's good for us because I still don't know what we have. We know what we have in our bench. We know that our bench is willing to go out there and fight every single day. But I don't know if our same 11 that we are going to count on for the 90 times 3, if we're going to see them do and be as successful as we're seeing our backups, and that concerns me a lot, because when we've seen Pulisic out there with the likes of Adams and Dest and Ream and the rest of this team, it has not been pretty. It has been nothing short of, not good. So I have concerns about that. But if we're going to play the best teams, I would say yes.
I'll say this. I just hope that we get to see, as you mentioned, John, the big our A team play against their A team. So I also want to see this. If Ronaldo plays, I want to see one of our players clean tackle right into him. And then he cries to the ref, and he cries to everyone. Then he goes on the Piers Morgan show and then just complains about how the media is so harsh to him because Ronaldo's just a giant crybaby, but yet is a cop-out and went to Saudi Arabia to get a whole bunch of money. Yeah, I just want to see Ronaldo just
get him.
I want Sebastian Berhalter of all people to just slide tackle right into Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah, you just got tackled by Greg Berhalter's son. That's what I want to see. Just Cristiano Ronaldo cry because I can't stand Ronaldo anymore. After what he said about the whole World Cup, how it doesn't define him anymore because Messi won it.
Yeah.
Screw you, Ronaldo. You're a bum.
Yeah.
All right.
Punch him right in the schnoz.
Well,
right in the kisser.
That'll wrap up our episode number 195 here on this Friday morning. We have just
right in the skull.
5 episodes left here as we get ready for our episode 200 here a week from today. Right. And so exciting times ahead of us, but either way, that is Nathan Wengler.
Match tonight.
That's Ryan Glinsky. I'm Jonathan Turner. We appreciate you stopping on by here on this Friday, the November the 21st. Be back at us again on Monday morning at the same time, same place, right here on Inside the Game.
From the biggest matches to the hottest takes, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler bring you the stories, the analysis, and the edge you won't get anywhere else. Streaming live weekdays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all major platforms. No filters, no fluff, just real talk, real soccer. This is Inside the Game.